Yeah. Episode number 2. Let's get it going, y'all. It's going down. Vital information. Again, for the people who don't know who I am, I'm Corey Pegues. Born and raised in Queens, New York. Eventually going into the New York City Police Department. Rising to the top. So, I'm qualified to give out this information. I'm so happy because for the next 3 weeks, we're going to be doing something that's vitally important to the black and brown community in America as a whole. We're going to be talking about police citizens encounters. The first episode is going to be this week called Street Encounters, what to do when stopped by the police in the streets. And next week, we're going to be doing vehicle stops. And the week after that, we're going to be doing when the cops come to your home, Breonna Taylor. We're going to be doing stuff like that. It's going to be some good stuff. We're going to get it going. So this came about because I usually go around speaking about police citizens encounters. So I looked at my PowerPoint presentation. I have this PowerPoint presentation called Police Citizens Encounters. And what I do, I talk about street stops, vehicle stops, and home encounters. All right? So I say, hey, why not give this information out to the people? Because the people are yearning for information. They want information about what to do when stopped by the police or having a police citizen encounter. First of all, I always keep it right now real. I'm going to give it to you raw. I'm going to give it to you unfiltered. I'm going to shoot it down the line. And again, this isn't a cop bashing session. Some cops do things that you don't know why they're doing and it's actually right. But sometimes they do a lot of stuff that they're not supposed to do. So again, we're live on Facebook and we're live on Instagram. And make sure y'all go to my YouTube channel, Ask Corey Pegues, and hit the subscribe button. Because a few weeks after doing this, we're going to just be going live on YouTube, Ask Corey Pegues. Make sure you go there, hit the red button, subscribe. Right now, I'm going to give y'all a chance. Share these videos. I'm telling you, if you're on Facebook, share. If you're on Instagram, tag. Let people know about this, what we're about to talk about, because the most important thing right now in the black community, black and brown community, is a police encounter. You need to know what to do. So the ultimate goal for this presentation is for you to live another day. That's the main ultimate goal, to survive a police encounter so that you could come home. No more Freddie Gray, no more Sean Bells, no more Sandra Bland, no more George Floyd. Let's get that information, pass it down the line to everybody so everyone know how to deal with a police citizen encounter. And again, for those of you who don't know me or don't think that I'm qualified to do it, looking over my shoulder here, I have my award-winning book called Once a Cop, The Street, The Law, Two Worlds, One Man. Yeah, I was in the streets as a young kid selling drugs, dealing with the cops and all. I became an executive in the biggest police department in the country. I got my bachelor's, I got a master's, and I went to the Police Management Institute at Columbia University. So I'm very well qualified to speak on these issues. And I got a street degree. I got a street degree, doctorate in that. So I'm used to my entire life dealing with the police and then working for the police. So we marry up the two, give you some good information. But we're going to start it off. When you're in a police citizen encounter, they stop you on the street, right? Let's just 3 weeks ago, 3 days ago, 2 to 3 days ago, the manager of Versace shoe section was in Beverly Hills and he got stopped in the store that he worked for. Actually, Donatella Versace just put out on social media a big a sorry letter, for him being stopped, because that's her friend. Not only her friend, she's the manager for all her shoe sections around there. He's black, he's in Beverly Hills, and supposedly he was jaywalking and the cops grabbed him, asked for his ID, searched him and everything. So these things are constantly happening. We don't know what to do when encountered with that stuff. All right, so we need to know. And the running theme to this is always to survive, live to see another day. Because we always comply and then we complain later. That's what I'm telling you to do. Now, again, what I'm telling you is just stuff that I know, stuff that I tell my sons, stuff that I tell my daughters. These are the things that I do when I'm dealing with the police. You can take it for whatever it's worth. If you don't want to do it, fine. But I'm telling you, this is a true tried method that's going to ensure that you get home to dinner, you get home to your kids, you get home to your family. And that's exactly why I'm doing this. And I do these presentations. I charge money to do this. Obviously, I'm not charging Facebook and Instagram. I'm just tired of people calling me and asking me questions about how do you do this, how do you do that. So we can get that information out. So the first thing, if somebody's stopping you on the street, one of the things I would ask is, am I free to leave? A lot of people don't do that, but you can't be controversial with the cops. Like, yo, what you stopping me for? And all that. Just ask them nicely, because believe it or not, some of the things that you say to cops, if you use keywords and phrases, they say, hey, that person must know what they're talking about. So you just ask them, officer, am I free to leave? And what's going to happen after that? They're either going to say yes, they're either going to say no, or they're going to either have a bulb that go off in their head and say, this guy or girl might know what they're talking about. Maybe I shouldn't. If they're wrong, maybe I shouldn't stop him at this point. Another thing, always comply with the police officer's orders. I know this is hard for people to digest, but I'm telling you, comply. So again, my thing is comply, and then we complain. I tell my kids, comply, because we always got money to get lawyers on deck later, no matter what. Now, some people say why? Why? Because it's a tried true method to ensure that you survive the police encounter. So again, for my sons, if the police tell you against the wall, get against the wall. They tell you get against the car, get against the car. Empty your pockets. I want it to be so non-controversial where the cops are actually looking at themselves inside and saying, I'm stupid. Why am I harassing this person? See, we just comply. You comply, and then we complain later. And I know there's questions out there that are saying, hey, well, this one complied, that one complied, and they still died. So I'm going to go right down this road with you. Even though there are incidents where we've actually seen people complying and still ended up dead at the hands of the police, I'm still going to tell people to comply with the orders, because I'm pretty sure in the grand scheme of things, the people dying at the hands of the police while complying is a lot lower on the scale of people not complying. So it's just something that you have to take a personal interest in if you want to comply, survive that police encounter to get home to your family. All right? Show identification. I will always show my identification. And let me thank the people out there. We have over 50 questions, so I'm going to just run through what I got, and we have like 50 questions. People have been emailing in. You can write your questions right here live. Send them to askcoreypegis@gmail.com. We got a lot of questions, lots and lots of questions. I love the questions, because that's what, people really want to know what to do, not just really just hear me regurgitate the stuff that I'm doing, or the stuff that I know. Don't make furtive movements. Please don't make furtive movements when you're dealing with the police. They approach you to get against the wall, you get against the wall. Please don't put your hands in your pocket. Don't put your hands in your pockets, all right? Don't start fidgeting, going into your jacket. Don't be reaching for stuff on the floor. Listen, a lot of times, police are stopping you sometimes because they actually have a description of a person, and you might fit that description for whatever reason. So let me just tell you, I've been retired 7 years from policing, all right? But I know right now in America, probably in the black and brown community, the description for a male that committed a crime, because it's all about analytics, it's analytics. We could crunch the numbers and see how many people were stopped, what they was wearing, what's the height, the weight, the whole nine. It's probably a male black between the age of like 14 to 25 years old, maybe about 5'10", wearing jeans and a hoodie. That's probably the description. But that doesn't mean it's racial profiling. That just means that's what we wear. Right now, I have on jeans and a hoodie. I'm not committing any crimes. That's just usually what we wear. And in other communities that's not black and brown, I'm quite sure that description, if once they crunch all the numbers and they come up with a description of a possible suspect, a person that commits crimes in this community, I'm pretty sure those descriptions are very close to what people wear in that community. I promise you that. Tried and tested. I'm telling you. Refrain from using profanity. Now, it's your right, First Amendment right to use profanity. You can curse cops out all day. But will it make the encounter go smoothly? Your whole thing is you don't want to be dealing with this cop any longer than you have to. So the more you agitate the cop, that stop is only going to go south. It's going to go bad. So as much as you can to ensure that you get out of there safely to end the stop, please just comply with the orders. Look, I'm going to go out and say, hey, most cops, if you kill them with kindness, they eventually are going to say, hey, I must be the one with the problem because this guy or girl is complying with everything that I'm asking them to do. And that's what I do now as a retired police officer. If I get stopped in the streets, I'm just complying. And then at the end, when I identify myself and let them know I'm a retired executive from the NYPD, they're like, oh, well, why didn't you tell me that in the beginning? Why you didn't tell me? I'm not telling them that in the beginning because I don't know what's going through their mind. I don't know if they had a description, I fit the description or whatever. And I just want this stop to end smoothly so I can get the hell away from them and let them go off and do their job and maybe harass somebody else. But I don't want to be harassed and I don't want to be ended up on the front page of the newspaper because a stop went bad and I maybe had something to do with it by agitating and fighting this scary person that's out here patrolling in our communities. You got to understand. Most cops don't even live in the communities in which they serve. And that's why I advocate that cops for the first 5 years of their career, they should live within a 10-mile radius, no longer living 25, 30, 45 miles away because they're coming out communities, cause havoc, and then leave. All right? If you don't remember anything from this presentation, if you have sons and daughters out there, what I'm about to say is the one thing that you must remember. When there's a street encounter and cops are telling you for whatever reason, put your hands on the wall, put your hands on the wall, raise your hands. Cops always want to see your palms. They want to see your palms, never your knuckles. Palms, never your knuckles. If you don't remember anything on a street encounter, they want to see your palms, not your knuckles. Because you could be showing them your knuckles, right? You could have your hands up like this, right? Your hands are up like this, and you could turn around, boom, have a 22 caliber, 25 caliber and shoot a cop because we've had instances of that. All right? Palms, never knuckles. Always remember that. And you tell your kids, palms, never knuckles, because you'll see outside in the street, people's hands are raised here, and at the audience, the people on the side are saying, his hands is up, but the cop is still focused on him. Yo, let me see your hands, turn your hands around. They want to see this, never that. And that's something that you just have to remember. It's the easiest thing to remember in the presentation. All right? Palms, never knuckles. Bystanders. This is what I tell my kids all the time. Your homeboys are the homegirls to be the ones that's going to get you in trouble. All right? But you can have coffee, black coffee, no sugar. Listen, your friends are going to be the ones that get you in trouble. So you tell your friends, if a group of y'all get stopped and they really just like focusing in on you, what I want you to do is tell your friends to go at a safe distance, back up, turn on that cell phone. I want them to film every single thing. But do not be on top of the cops. Yo, why you messing with my man? Yo, he ain't do nothing. Yo, this, yo, that, yo, that. Nah, I need for your friends to videotape everything so that we can have some evidence of why you were stopped and what was happening during the stop. So tell your homeboys and your homegirls, please, let me deal with them. I need y'all to turn those phones on, start recording now. And you do know, like with technology today, there's cameras everywhere. Big Brother is always watching. But it's better for them to just stop one person instead of the 5 people, like everybody going to jail. No. Let them deal with the one person in the group who they suspect or have reasonable suspicion or probable cause for whatever reason that they did something. And everybody else stand to the side. Call your parents, all right? They can call your mother, they can call your brother, they can call your sister, call somebody, call your uncle, and get help down there. Let them know where you are, you're being stopped, and we got it on videotape. But remember, when you're videotaping, it must be at a safe distance, or you'll be charged with obstructing governmental administration. If you were for like maybe 5 feet on top of the cop with your video camera, your phone on them, all right, they're going to charge you with OGA, obstructing governmental administration. You can't be interfering in the arrest that the cop is doing, a lawful arrest. Now, the George Floyd incident, totally different. For me, I was a civilian and I saw that. I'm jumping on that cop. I'm taking that charge. There's no way in the world I could have stand there and seen the cops take the life out of a man. I would have just had to get arrested for assault on a police officer. At least, he would have had a couple of black guys. They would have probably beat the mess out of me, but I would have interfered in that. That one right there definitely should have been interference instead of video cameras. Everybody should have been jumping on those guys for killing that man. It was bad. It was real bad. And one of the things that you really have to do, and I know these are very, very trying times when you're dealing with these police citizens encounters, right? You're not always in your right mindset, but I need you to focus. I need you to really get into your mindset. You have to try to get a description of that cop, especially if that cop is in plain clothes. Y'all know I'm from New York City, so the NYPD, they have a lot of plainclothes cops out there in the streets. So you can't just say it was shield number such and such, 1, 2, 3, 4. You got to do something a little different. So what I'm asking y'all to do, if you have an encounter with a cop, and especially if they got plain clothes on, I need you to get the description of what they was wearing that day, if you can, and get the vehicle that was riding in, that they were riding in, if it was an unmarked, like a Chrysler, Toyota, whatever they're riding in. But more importantly, you got to get that license plate number. Because every cop in America that's driving right now, every police department know which 2 cops or 1 cop is in that vehicle. So you must get that license plate number. And if they're in uniform, quite obvious, you want to get their name and their shield. And you can say, politely ask, like, can I have your name and shield? Can I have your name and shield? How can I make a complaint? Because I don't think that this encounter was legitimate. It wasn't right. I didn't do anything. Ask those things politely. The screaming and yelling, if you want to use that approach, it's not anything going to get done. Because all you're going to do is have that cop, him or her, put that wall up. It's going to put that wall up, and you're going to be back to the same old thing. No, I'm not giving you my shield. No, I'm not giving you, yo, back up, back up, back up. Just ask them, and again, if they're in uniform, it's already there. So you don't even have to ask. Just get the information, take the information, and as soon as that cop leaves, one of the things that you must do, as soon as that encounter is over, you need to get on your phone, go to the note section, and start typing. It was a male black, it was a male white, he had a red shirt on, blue jeans, he was in this color car, and this was the license plate. If you don't do that immediately after the stop, you're not going to remember what it was. I promise you that. You're not going to remember what that person had on. It probably about 1.5 minutes away, because you're so agitated, right? You're so wound up from this situation, you're not going to remember. But the key is to write that information down as soon as you possibly can. The description, the name, the shield, the vehicle they was riding in, and anything that you thought might have been said wrong to you. Write all of that stuff down in the note section of your phone. The phones, these tools are great because you can use them for anything. You can call people, you can write notes, you can send messages, email, and then once you write all that stuff down, what I'm asking you to do now, after you write it down, email it to yourself so that you can have a permanent record. Because if you walk down a block and you drop your phone in a puddle of water, guess what happens? You lost all of that information. But if you send it out as an email, it's always going to be in your cloud. Write the information down, email it to yourself. All right? Email it to yourself. And just some tips from like the New York Civil Liberties Union. Stay calm and in control of your words, your body, your language. Like, try as much as, I know this is easy for me to tell you while we're just doing something live, but try to stay cool, try to stay calm. I'm always cool under pressure, never gonna bust, it's never gonna happen. Always gonna stay cool. Try to stay cool and calm. Don't get into an argument with the police. Why would you want to argue with somebody that had the power to arrest and carrying a gun? Don't argue with them. Don't argue with them at all. Just try to get through the encounter as much as you can. I need you to get through that encounter. Remember, anything you say can, it will be used against you. All right? So don't be blabbing too much, especially if a crime was committed and you was in close proximity. Just keep your mouth shut. You have a right to lawyer. If you can't buy one, they got to provide one for you. But if you blabbering at your mouth, it's called spontaneous utterances. They're writing everything down that you said, and they'll be using that against you. So don't, all right? Keep your hands where the cops can see them at all times. All times. Please keep your hands. Palms, never knuckles. Don't run. Why would you run? The only reason you would run is probably because you did something, right? It's funny because when I was a cop, me and my partner, we would roll up on a corner, and like 2 or 3 people would run. And because I was in the streets, I was like, we're not chasing those guys. The people that didn't run, that's the guy over there with the gun. I promise you, that's the guy with the gun. So we would always get the guy with the gun because the gunman wasn't running. And I knew that just by being in the street. So you cops out there that's chasing everybody running, step your game up. You got to learn how to deal with the streets. Don't resist arrest. Please don't resist arrest. Don't reach. Please, please, please. I can't tell you enough. If they're going to arrest you, just let them arrest you. Let them arrest you. Don't be moving your arms. Don't be moving your hands. All they're going to do is charge you with resisting arrest. That's the add-on charge. OGA, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, all of these BS charges. You're going to give them the green light to charge you with that. Don't resist. You arrested me, officer. All right, I'm putting my hands behind my back. My wallet is in my right back pocket. Whatever it is. Just kill them with kindness. Live to see another day. That's the running thing. Live to see another day. Don't make any statements. All right? Again, I told you about writing everything down ASAP. And look, most important again, if in fact you are injured, let's say they punch you in the face or, they hurt your arm, you got skid marks on your pants from them, bring you down to the ground, please, 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 take pictures, plenty of pictures. Take pictures, and what are you going to do after you take the pictures? You're going to email it to yourself, right? Take the picture, have the photos, email them to yourself, all right? Permanent record. You got to keep that permanent record. So now when you get your lawyer or you're getting ready to go out there and make a complaint at the precinct, you have the information. You're not just going there off the top of your head because I'm telling you, you're nervous, you're agitated, you won't remember key details if you're not writing this stuff down, taking photos, and emailing it to yourself. So now you got that permanent record. If you do want to make a complaint, shoot it to your lawyer. If you do want to make the complaint to the precinct, to the Internal Affairs, to the Civilian Complaint Review Board, you have the information, shoot it right down range. So let's go through some questions, all right? We have a lot of questions, lots of questions. And remember, next week, I'm going to be giving you tips on the vehicle stops. And this Ask Corey Piggy show, we try to keep it down at 30, 45 minutes. It's more about getting the questions so I can answer the questions that the people out there want answered, all right? So I got questions from all over the country. Let's go. What the police department is doing now to implement change? Well, I don't really know what police departments are doing to implement change, but what I do know is that police departments, in my estimation, are pretty much laying down, and they're not really doing a lot. They're not doing a lot, and I think it's a disservice to the citizens in which they serve, the citizens that pay their taxes. The cops must protect, serve, preserve life. That's what they need to do, and they're not really doing it. What kind of reforms can we see police departments doing in hiring process for minorities? Well, the hiring process is the biggest key to this whole thing about hiring people. No longer should it be like nephews, nieces, next door neighbors. Of course, if they qualify, just bring them on. We want them to get jobs too. But you got to be heavily vetted. This new technology with like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of that stuff, I believe like in 10 years, you'll be weeding out a lot of people. Because all these young crazy racists, they're putting up stuff, KKK, I hate black and brown people. So it's going to be pretty easy moving forward to drill down and investigate people. But there needs to be real serious investigations. No longer just bringing your people on because you know them. Because this is a very important job. It's the only profession in America where you get to carry a gun and kill people if deadly physical force is being used against you or somebody else, even imminently. So there should be a heavy vetting process. All right. What kind of changes are being done for police officers and they're dealing with the public? Well, I know that they're trying to do more training, implicit bias training, having them do more ethnic training so they know how to deal in the communities in which they serve. I remember, quick story, when I was a cop and we went to a mosque, we had a job at the mosque over in Astoria, and we got there, and I was with a white partner, and we got there, and the imam was like, you got to take your shoes off to come in. And my partner was like, I ain't taking my shoes off. So I took my boots off to go inside. And I was like, you see the pile of shoes over there? I said, everybody's in there praying and they had to take their shoes off. He said, but I'm not taking my shoes off. I said, well, I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to go ahead and handle this job. And if something happened to me, you're going to have to explain to the captain and my family on why I got killed or beat up. Well, I'm going inside. Because I knew the lay of the land. I knew what it was to go to a mosque that you got to take your shoes off. So he wasn't well trained in that. So that was a reflection of the police department not bringing this guy up to speed on how to deal with different ethnicities. All right? Are cops less likely to respond or act in certain instances because of the fear for being personally sued or held liable? You got that right, especially today. It's almost a hands-off approach. Which, I don't agree with. I believe if you're out there and honestly doing your job the correct way, you won't get sued. It won't be any liability, but it's kind of hard to convince cops with the climate of what's going on today to interfere. It saddens me, but I do believe that when those radio calls are coming in, cops are answering those jobs. But to go above and beyond, like we want the cops to do, to seek out crimes while they're driving around, I don't think that that's really happening. I really believe that cops are just right now just answering the radio call. Oh, they gave me a call. I'll take my time. I'm gonna go there and answer it, but I'm not doing anything. Like they'll see a group of people on the corner smoking, rolling dice and stuff. The cops are not stopping that, and that's a leadership problem. The leadership needs to be down on the cops saying, "Hey, we're here to protect and serve. That's what you need to do." Those questions came from Brooklyn, New York. What are my rights when I do not consent to a search of my Fourth Amendment rights are violated? Illegal search and seizure, Fourth Amendment. So, what your rights are to make a complaint, all right? You have a right. So let me just give you an example. So, if the cops approach you and ask you to empty your pockets, should you empty your pockets? No. Why am I emptying my pockets? You can't just illegally search me. The cops gotta have reasonable suspicion that a crime, criminality is afoot, or probable cause, meaning in fact they know you committed a crime. They're not supposed to indiscriminately come over to you, throw you against the wall, illegally search and seize you. That's not what they're supposed to do. And if in fact that happens, then you should be filing complaints. Again, all the stuff we talked about: name, shield, card number, time is very important. Time stamp, license plate number. Who else was there with him? All your information when you're making that complaint, because that's not what should be happening. What are cops legally supposed to do when stopping a vehicle? Next week we're going to be talking about vehicles. If stopped by police, what's my rights? Well, we kind of talked about that. You have the right to remain silent. All right. You have the right. What I tell my kids is this: so if you get stopped by the police, we're not answering no question. Name, address, date of birth. Call my lawyer. That's the drill. I don't care. They're gonna beat my sons or whatever. They're not giving up no more information. Name, address, date of birth. Call my lawyer. I want a lawyer. That's the information. That's your right. You have a right to a lawyer just like everybody else. So you give them that information and keep it moving. If stopped by police, what are my rights? What's the process to report an officer if your rights are violated after being stopped? Well, it's different ways. So I could speak from the big city perspective. Like New York City, you could make a complaint to the CCRB. You could complain to the cops themselves. You could complain with your politicians, the ACLU, NAACP. So there's different outlets that you can complain, and those pretty much around the country you can complain. I always implore people to complain to their local politicians, because the politicians have the relationship with the police, and they could bring that heat. Your congressman is calling the police chief, assemblyman, the senator. It's a problem. They don't want those calls. They don't want those calls. And that came from Long Island. Do I have to answer questions asked by law enforcement officers? No, you have a right to remain silent. You don't have to answer any questions at all. Name, address, date of birth. That's all. That's all I'm giving up. Name, address, date of birth. You don't have to answer any questions. I'm telling you. You gotta understand. So when I was a cop, I used to hate to see that these young boys would come in the back. The detectives have them. They're writing out statements. They're talking and talking. I hated it. It's like, listen, name, address, date of birth. Don't talk to the cops. You gotta understand. These are trained professionals. We send the detectives to interrogation school on how to interrogate people. So how do you think you don't have any experience? How are you going to get out of the situation? Don't talk to them. Why would you want to talk to them? The only thing you're going to do is incriminate yourself. And don't sign any paperwork. I don't care how good they make it sound. Say, listen, if you just sign this, I'm going to let you go home. Do not sign anything. If you didn't write it, especially if you didn't write it, you didn't type it, definitely do not sign it. I'm not signing it. I'm not putting no initials. I'm not doing anything. I want my lawyer. That's just it. And again, this isn't a cop bashing session, but I got to bring my people up to speed on how you dealing with these police citizens encounters. All right? Are there any exceptions to the general rule that I do not have to answer questions? No exceptions. Don't answer no question. I'm not answering anything. If you don't have a lawyer, you don't have to answer no questions. Name, address, date of birth. The police are at my door. Now what? That's next week's topic. That's actually in 2 weeks. We're going to be talking about when the cops come to your home. What can I do if I think I'm witnessing police abuse or brutality? If you believe you're witnessing police brutality or abuse, I need you to film it. You need to film it and then report it. And whatever your mechanism to support it wherever you live around the country, either the police department, again, NAACP, ACLU, local politicians, that's how you report the abuse. But if you could get a film, man, it's nothing better than the film. There's nothing better than the film. That came from Brooklyn. What does defund police mean for black and brown communities, and can it be effective in addressing police brutality? Defund the police. Great question. That question came from LA. Great question. So, defund the police, it means several different things. But most people are thinking defund the police meaning get rid of the police. Nobody in their right mind want to get rid of the police, but we can defund the police in ways of like moving money from different things, like emotionally disturbed people job. Like you got somebody, that's your son, your brother, they take their medicine, they're not feeling good, they just broke a lamp, they're not feeling good about themselves, they're acting a little bit off. When the cops get to these scenes, more than likely, these cops are using mace, they're using tasers, they're using their baton, and God forbid, in some of these instances, they kill them. But we need to start sending trained professionals there, clinical physicians, to go to these things, just like they do in Oregon with the CAHOOTS unit, CAHOOTS. They've been doing it for over 20 years. When they get a call of an emotionally disturbed person, they send them there first, and if they can't handle it, then they'll call it and dispatch the police to the scene. All right? The war on drugs. We've been doing it since the Reagan era. What are we doing today? The war on drugs. You can't arrest your way out of drug addiction. So we need to start putting more funding in education, counseling, dealing with the drugs, and stop having cops go arrest somebody for a violent crime, arrest somebody because they're smoking marijuana, sniffing cocaine or whatever. All it is recycling the same thing. They're going back and back and back and back in jail, back and forth, back and forth. Get rid of it. Move money that way. So what I'm saying, I mean, that I have a plethora of examples to give you on how to defund the police. But it's not about defunding and getting rid of the police, but you need to move resources from the police department, put them in other aspects of government that can help cure some of this stuff that's going on in America. How do you deal with police encounters? We pretty much already touched that. When can a police officer make an arrest without a warrant? Great question. Police officer can make an arrest without a warrant when they have reasonable suspicion that criminality is afoot or probable cause that you in fact committed a crime. You don't need a warrant. So if you have those elements, the cops are bound by law to effect an arrest. Can you walk away from the police officers? Great question. Yes, you can walk away from the police if in fact you're not detained. So that's the question. When the cops approach me on the street, I'm asking, am I free to leave? They're going to tell you. They're even going to say, yeah, if they say, no, you can't leave, you say, oh, am I under arrest? No, you're not under arrest. Well, I'm not detained. Well, I'm walking away. And then you put the onus on them. If they're going to effect an arrest, let them effect the arrest. But they're not supposed to just detain you. They can't just do that. So I will walk away, but I will ask those questions. Am I free to leave? Are you detaining me? Am I under arrest? If I'm not, then let them explain to you. Hey, listen, sir, you fit the description. We're doing an investigation. I need you to hold on. I'll let you. You'll be free after, we finish this small, quick investigation. What to do when you stop in your car? We're doing car stops next week, 4 p.m. next Sunday, vehicle stop. Do I have to answer questions asked by law enforcement officers? I think we kind of went through that. No. Name, address, date of birth. And then when your lawyer comes, your lawyer will tell you, in fact, which questions you can answer, which questions you don't have to answer. Where can I get information about knowing my rights? Lots of places, again, like mostly like the ACLU, all of these community-based organizations like Civil Liberties Union, NAACP, Urban League, and sometimes the police departments. I know like in New York City, right, they'll tell you how to make a complaint against a cop. There's 2 ways. You can make it in person, you can make it on phone, or you can do it by email. So you don't have to always have this engagement with a person telling what the complaint is. You can do it electronically or over the phone. And make sure if you're making those complaints, you get that serial number. They should be giving you a serial number. Thank you. Those came from the Bronx. How can citizens partner with police departments in their communities to make sure there's a level of accountability and their needs as a community are heard? Great. Police and citizens coming together. So let me just give you my picture of a great police department. It would be the community and the police coming together to do a great deed for that community. So much so, like the community, in my estimation, should have a say in who patrols their area, at least on a high level as a commander. What commander's coming in? Because if the commander's not good, nothing else underneath him or her is going to be good. So I really think in some communities, I do know, like in New York City, the Hasidic communities, they get a say in who comes to their community. And anybody in NYPD that's on here and want to challenge me, give me a call, DM me. I give you numerous examples. I know that for a fact. But we should have a say in who comes to our community. So that's something that, like, the mayor's office got to bring in. Even the police commissioner could bring in. It's almost like with Donald Trump, when he was running for president, he said, I have a list of judges who I'm going to select. So when there's a new mayor in your municipality, we should be telling him or her, give me a list of 5 people who you're considering to be our police commissioner. And then we'll look at them and vet those 5 people. And we know we can have a great working relationship with this person. And now we probably can get into the selection process of bringing who we want to come to our community, police our community. We should have a say because it's called community policing. The community and the police should come together in agreement on how our community should be policed. And it happens. It happens in other areas. I'm telling you, it happens in other areas. How do we know who to vote for that will actually make a difference? Who do we contact to find out more information on our communities? Again, the voting counts, but you got to hold your feet to the fire. I just gave you a prime example. If somebody's running for mayor, city manager, whatever they're running for, you got to make sure that they have your best interest. So if they don't have your best interest, who do you think they're going to make the police commissioner? Somebody who's going to have your best interest. I promise you that. So you got to hold your feet to the fire. And the way you do that is have them come out, speak, get that list. That's the thing. We want a list of 5 people. If you are elected in this municipality, who are the 5 people you're considering to be our police commissioner? Who's the 5 is going to be our schools chancellor, sanitation, so on and so forth. The time now, you got to hold these politicians' feet to the fire. You got it. It's a must. How do we find out who the rogue officers are And who do we contact to make sure bad cops are removed? Great question. So in New York, they just demanded that the cops put a list out of people that got complaints. You got to put the list out. And that should happen around all different communities around the country. The police department's got to be more transparent because it's hard for you to find out. You know, it's like the George Floyd case. That cop, Chauvin, that killed him, that murderer that killed him, he had 18 years on the job. He was involved in 3 shootings and 1 shooting. He killed somebody. The community didn't know that. Why was this guy running around like Wile E. Coyote? And that day they made him the training officer. So the police department's got to be more transparent about putting that information out, so we know who's in our community. Like, we don't want them. Send them somewhere else. I don't want them in my community. As a matter of fact, him or her should be fired, terminated. I had a bad experience but did not report it because I felt nothing would be done. Is there a limit on the amount of time that passes that we have to report this kind of information? Great question. So, in different municipalities, they have different statute of limitations. So you need to find out from your municipality how long is the statute of limitations to make a complaint against a cop. And again, my position is, if in fact you felt violated, write everything down. It needs to be an immediate response, because you do know their mindset is when you come a year later, 6 months later, they think that you got a personal agenda against that cop. So the quicker you can get that information out and make your complaint, the better. What should my son do if he's pulled over by an overly aggressive cop at night? Next week we'll be doing that. These questions came from Maryland. Thank you so much. Why do unarmed black and brown men continue to get lynched by the police or killed by the police? I can't really answer that, but what I can tell you is I think there's a devalue on life in the black and brown community with the police. I can say it. Yes, I said it to the police officers out there. I know in black and brown communities, the police hunt, and in white communities, they protect and serve. So until we get rid of that mindset, Freddie Grays, Sean Bells, they're going to continue to happen. I promise you that. They can't just keep hunting. And if you keep hunting, eventually you're going to shoot. But if you're protecting and serving, you're never pulling your gun out. So if your mindset is to hunt, hunters do what? They kill. That's what they do. Hunters kill. So if they keep hunting in our communities, it will continuously be kills. If they're protecting and serving, crime will go down, relationships will get better. As a mother of and that came from Baldwin, Long Island. As a mother of a teenage black male, what is the absolute most important thing that I need to teach him with regards to being stopped by the police? That's a super great question, Mom. And the single most important thing that I'm telling you to do is to tell your son, as hard as it is for some people to comprehend this, but I'm telling my son, the same thing I'm going to tell your son: comply, comply, comply. Please comply, baby, because I need you to get home at night. Even if the cop is telling you to do something that you think they're not supposed to legally tell you to do, I'm asking my kids to comply, and then later on we'll deal with it. Because I need to see my baby get home so I can kiss him and hug him at night. That's the advice I'm giving. I'm going to keep giving that advice. I'm like, some people, they hit me up and they're like, yo, man, you keep telling us to comply. We keep complying and people are dying. There's no other information. There's no other alternative. Because if you don't comply, that means you're not complying. I'm taking my chances with complying all day long. If it means me getting beat up or whatever, hopefully not dead, but I'm going to comply. I'm taking my chances with complying than to resist it. Because the opposite of comply is to resist. So I don't even know why I usually get pushback on this, but that's what it is. I'm complying, and ma'am, I want your son to comply, because I know you probably love the mess out of him when you need to make your home to dinner that night. What are some of the best practices to follow when your rights are being violated during a police encounter? We spoke about that a little earlier. Complying, taking your information down, taking pictures, videotaping, emailing yourself all that information, writing it down so that you can make that formal complaint and possibly get that person fired. get that person transferred, get that person suspended, or ultimately termination. Do I have to carry identification? I get that question all the time. Well, I'm gonna tell you this: if you're 16 or older, should you have some ID? You should. Do you have to carry ID? No, you don't have to carry ID. But you know what happens? You put yourself in a position where if you don't have ID, they gotta bring you to the precinct to identify you. So now you're in the precinct, and you know how to identify people, right? Now with their mother coming, fingerprints. So now you got fingerprints. Now you got a police record. At least you got prints. So if you're 16 or older, you get a non-driver's ID. Some places probably a little younger than that, but you should have some form of ID. If you got a son or daughter that's 13, most schools give ID. Have them carry their school ID. But if you don't have ID and you're caught up in something, you don't have ID, they're not going to make that phone call on the scene right there and call your mother and tell her mother to come down and identify you. They'll take you to the precinct and possibly fingerprint you to see if your prints come back. Do the police have rights to search my pockets? The police shouldn't be searching your pockets unless they believe that there's a weapon inside your pocket. So if they have reasonable suspicion, let's say if your pocket has an outline of a gun, they're going to grab that pocket to see if in fact that it's a gun. All right? So if they believe that there's a weapon on you, that's when they could search. And then when they search, they only could go inside because what they felt outside was a weapon. That's the simplest answer I can give you to that. But they're not supposed to just throw you against the wall and start going through your pockets. That's not what they're supposed to do. It's illegal search and seizure. That was this whole stop and question and frisk thing that New York City Police Department was guilty of. If I'm afraid to speak to the police and run when they approach me, do they have a right to chase me? Well, that's a pretty tricky question. So let me just tell you, if you're in a high crime area, you're in a very high crime area, right? Crimes are being committed all the time, and the police approach, right? They're going to, and you run, they're going to chase you because they're going to say, hey, because of the Terry stop, it's Terry versus Ohio, I believe. It's case law, this is case law, it's supreme. So if you're in a high crime area and you're doing suspicious behavior, like running when the police come, they're going to be legal by chasing you and stopping you. And if they find something on you, it's going to stick. Remember, if the cops illegally search you and find a weapon, it's like, again, the fruits of the poisonous tree. Even though they found a gun, if the stop wasn't good, then the whole thing was thrown out. All right? I know there's some people afraid of police, but I'm just telling you, if you're in a high crime area, they will have the right to chase you and stop you. How can I identify the cops that stop me? We pretty much bang that up. Name, shield, ID, car, color of the car, clothing description, all of that stuff. Put in your notes, email it to yourself. It's locked in, you got it, and that's that. Because a lot of internal affairs units are too close or part of the police department about giving independent organizations outside of the police department powers to bring criminal or disposition charges against officers when found guilty instead of internal unit. I don't really know what that question is, but I think what they're trying to say is because police departments are so internalized with their internal affairs, should there be outside units that's doing investigations? Yes. Well, in New York, for instance, they have a lot of oversight. They got internal affairs, the CCRB, Civilian Complaint Review Board. They got the internal affairs. They got the Eastern District of the feds, right? They have a new police oversight site unit. So they got all these different units. But if there's no teeth in the units, meaning that they could bring criminal charges against the cops, you just have a bunch of units that can investigate cops. But if they're not doing the right thing, then it don't work. And so let me just tell you what my idea of a good civilian complaint review board is also. I believe it should be between 5 and maybe 7. It has to be an odd number because it's got to be a majority rule. But I insist that it must be one of the people on that board should be a cop, a retired cop. And the reason I say that is because sometimes these incidents you see around America, some of them are right. And if you just have educators on there or scholars on these civilian complaint review boards, they're not going to understand. So out of that 5 or that 7, if one is a cop, that could probably bring some police clarity to these complaints that might enlighten the other people on the board and say, oh, we never thought about it like that. So again, it's not a cop action session. I'm just pouring my heart out. I'm just giving you what I believe. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm just giving you stuff that I believe will work dealing with the police. Okay? CCRB investigation should be submitted to the State Attorney General's office. And those questions came from Long Island. The CCRB investigation should be submitted to the State Attorney General's office, not the local police department. Again, if the Civilian Complaint Review Board has teeth and it's a good Civilian Complaint Review Board, I don't have no problem with them, the local CCRB doing it, sending it to the State Attorney General. I do believe that all police involved incidents that result in the death of a civilian, it should go right to the State Attorney General. But somebody cursing somebody out, I don't think the Attorney General has time to deal with those minuscule complaints. All right, but if something super, super big involving a death at the hands of the police, send it right to the Attorney General's office. And that came from Long Island. Does the police have to tell you why you're being stopped, pulled over before asking for your license registration? We're going to be doing that next week. Are you required to present your ID prior to knowing why you were stopped? Again, you should give name, address, date of birth. Okay? Name, address, date of birth when dealing with the police. They ask you for your ID and you have your ID. I don't necessarily see a problem with giving the police your ID. If it's going to have them run your name and see that you weren't involved, you're not the person that they're looking for, it's going to be have a nice day. You don't give them the ID and they're insisting on IDing you, they will put the bracelets on you, bring you to the precinct to identify who you are. And if you had your ID on you when you get to the precinct, that absolutely doesn't make no sense. Now, you went all the way to the precinct and you could have just gave them, comply, gave them the driver's license, let them run it, give them the school ID, let them run it. If it's nothing there, they're going to give it back to you and say, have a nice day. Can a male cop search a female on the street for guns or drugs? Great question. People always ask that, and I see that on YouTube. Oh, she's a female, why you search her? You need a cop to search, you need a female to cop to search her. So let me just tell you, if this is a situation involving danger, gender is way out of the question. You get to call a description of a woman that just committed the shooting, and she's in, a blue dress or whatever it is, or blue jeans. That cop is going to search her. He can't search her private parts, but yes, he can search her waist. They will, for the most part, will call for a female to come to the scene. But if it's an imminent situation where there's danger, they're not going to be pulling her bra, going in her pants, but they will go around the waist for safety and then wait for a female to come so that the female could do a more in-depth search. All right, and definitely at the precinct, definitely when I have a female there. You got to understand, sometimes it's not a female cop. And I know sometimes like these small police departments around the country, they might have to wait for a female to come from another county. So we can't be standing out there all day and we think that this person has a gun. We do a preliminary search, just pat her waist down, and then wait for a female to come. But they're not doing that for drugs. They shouldn't be searching for drugs. That's totally out of the question. That's an invasive search that should be happening right back at the precinct. They're not searching, and I'm just talking guns. Shooting, involvement, description came over, that's the person. Preliminary search, around the waist, get her out of here to the precinct, have a female Officer Jones come and give her a more in-depth search. Can you get arrested for cursing a cop out? Absolutely not. You have a right to First Amendment. You can say whatever the hell you want to. Alright? Cops shouldn't be locking you up for cursing you out. Now, do they do it? Probably and lock you up for disorderly conduct. But they're not supposed to be locking you up because you curse them out. You could curse them out all day. All day. I'm not imploring you to. I'm not telling you to curse out cops. But if you decide to curse a cop out, oh well, you have to deal with that. Make sure y'all sharing this video. Sharing the video. It's good information, vital information. Share, share, share. Can you film the police? Yes, you can film the police. Pull your cell phone out. Pull out your video handheld camera, whatever your Canon, whatever you got. You can film. You have a right to film. But you have to be at a safe distance, not up on top of the cop, because if you interfere with the governmental administration, you will get charged with interfering with a police operation. Stand at a safe distance, zoom in, film as much as you want to. They can't knock the camera out of your hand. They can't arrest you for filming, all right? Never. How far... Somebody wrote me, how far does a PBA card go? Police Benevolent Association courtesy card. So cops, at least in the NYPD and in New Jersey, I know some of the other municipalities, they give out courtesy cards to family members. Now, how far does it go? It's not a get out of jail card. It's not a get out of jail card. So when I was a cop, if I pulled somebody over and they showed me a courtesy card, what I would do is just ask them, whose card is it? Can I call them? I will call the person, ask, is this your family member? If it wasn't a crime, like you're not letting, even if they know the person, you're not letting them go if they committed a crime. But if it was just for like a summons, a red light, a broken tail light or something, and I knew it was family, pretty much let them go. Today, these cops, they're out of control. I don't even know if they respect that. That was old policing. If you gave out a courtesy card, the cop usually respected it because they wanted that same respect extended to their family. All right? If you're arrested and have family on the job, a cop's obligated to call them. No. If you get arrested, they're not obligated to call anyone. Okay? So, if you have family on the job, you shouldn't be getting arrested because you should respect that family member enough that you don't want to taint his or her name that, their family members committing crime. Well, let's see if we got any questions. We got any questions on Instagram? As long as you are armless and you could film, yes, courtesy card. I'm going to Instagram first. Police officer, producer, the CEA president, that's the captain's president, NYPD, made a public statement about the negative impact of CompStat and how it seeks to target minority communities. What's your experience with CompStat? Well, CompStat is crime strategy meeting where police commanders every Thursday at 7 a.m. have to stand in front of their peers and get grilled about crime that's happening for the last 28 days in their area of operation. It used to be good when it first started because we had a lot of crime. I think now it's not so good now. I think they need to really revamp it where they're really just bringing down the precincts that's up in crime. No longer bringing down precincts. They bring them down as a borough. And yet they're doing CompStat all around the country. I think it should be streamlined. It was really good at the beginning, but it's been watered down now. And I think it should be streamlined to just bringing the precincts down that's really, really up in crime. There's no sense in bringing every precinct down. And it should be an information sharing meeting and not a beat-up session, which some people have made it because they have chips on the shoulder. The chiefs that's given the question. So that's just my opinion on that. Okay. You should be. All right, the age. Some people say the age. You should be at least 25 before you get hired. Not bad. 25. Ready to finish high school, college. Think you're more mature, but sometimes a 20-year-old is more mature than a 25-year-old. So it just depends on the person. I don't really have a problem with the age. I became a cop at 23 years old, but I already, have my street degree, already graduated from high school and did 4 years in the military. So I was kind of an adult at an early age, ready to deal with the responsibility of having that weight on my shoulder if I had to immediately take somebody's life. I was already prepared to do that. All right, let's see what we got on Facebook. Any live questions on Facebook? Bunch of questions.